Well, I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see.
It looks something like this.
In this video, we're going to look at how do you know where you can or can't fly. Well, it starts with one simple check: location, location, location. The main thing to do before you fly is checking the airspace that you're going to be flying in. In this check, we're going to be looking at whether we're flying close to airports, airfields, military bases, restricted areas, so on and so forth. So essentially anything that may have controlled airspace around it could have severe consequences for flying it. So we need to be very careful and make sure we check this before we fly. Now remember, we are sharing the airspace with full-sized aircraft, and if our drone was to collide, there could be severe consequences and we could put other people at risk. No matter the size of the drone, if it was to hit the windscreen or the propeller of a light aircraft or even go through an engine of a jet, the potential could be disastrous, and that is why the rules exist. As drone pilots, we're restricted to 400 foot altitude. The only other time generally other aircraft are going to be flying at that height is if they're taking off or they're landing. So that means there's an increased risk if we're flying near an airport or an airfield. Often military bases also have very low flying aircraft, such as helicopters practicing low flying maneuvers. One other area we need to be really careful of are restricted areas. Now they restrict anyone from entering without permission. So if you have an idea of where you would like to fly, how do you actually check your airspace? Well, it's actually very simple and it only takes a couple of minutes. You can do it on your computer, or you can do it on your phone. There really is no excuse for not carrying this out. So we personally recommend using an app called Drone Assist. Now this is developed by NATS. They're the National Air Traffic Services and they're the air traffic controllers in the UK, and they've built this app. The app consists of an interactive map of the UK. You can search for a location on here and it's then going to display any controlled areas, hazards, areas that we need to be aware of before we fly our drone. One key thing here is that we're not just looking for airports, we're looking for smaller airfields, aerodromes, could even be power stations or nuclear power stations. These are all areas that have controlled airspace that we need to be aware of. Right, so let's take a look at how we actually use the app. When you first open the app, you're going to be hit with a T's and C's screen. Make sure you read that and then hit I understand, continue. It's going to automatically load to the location of your device. If you're flying at that location, then that's good, you can carry on. If not, you can click on the magnifying glass and then search for a location. If you pop that in, that's then going to take you to that location and then load up any areas you need to be aware of. So down in Poole, for example, here, we have this large red area. This is Class D airspace for Bournemouth International Airport. Closer to Bournemouth Airport, for example, you can then click on the airspace again. It's going to load up two areas here. The large Class D airspace that was around Poole, and then also the flight restriction zone. If we click on that flight restriction zone text, that's then going to load up more text about that specific zone. Ultimately, when checking our location within the app, if we find that we are within one of these areas, we just click on the area that we're within. That's then going to load up the text about that specific airspace. Make sure you then read everything that it's telling you, and then it's going to tell you whether you can or can't fly there. The best thing to do, get it downloaded, have a play around, go and look at different locations, look at the different types of airspace that you might encounter. Once you've used it a couple of times, you'll be used to what you're looking for, and ultimately you're just looking as whether you are within one of these controlled airspace areas or not. Another thing that you might find when researching and checking the airspace are what's called NOTAMs, Notices to Airmen. Now these are temporary airspace restrictions. They're generally used when an event is taking place that needs a controlled airspace over the top of. It could be a red arrows display event, something in the air, but it could be a high profile government meeting, for example. So when you're researching your location, if you do see any of these NOTAMs, make sure to read them carefully, as sometimes they do restrict you from physically flying whilst that's active. We really recommend using Drone Assist, so ideally grab your phone, get it downloaded now. Now if you don't want to use an app or use your phone, you can visit a website, dronesafetymap.com, and this is just a desktop version basically of Drone Assist. The Drone Safety Map will show you exactly the same information as Drone Assist. So both of these tools are going to be really valuable when you're checking the airspace. If you find that you are in controlled airspace when completing your checks and you don't have permission, then you cannot fly. If you would like to fly in controlled airspace, then you need to seek permission. Now this may sound complicated, but it actually really isn't. Once you've had a look around, you can complete a check within a couple of minutes. If you're not flying in the UK, then there are similar resources to Drone Assist or the Drone Safety Map that you can use for your country. The main takeaway from this video is to make sure you know how to complete airspace checks. If you're unsure, just use your common sense and move to a different location where you know you can fly.